Hello and welcome to a silly video I'm about to show you. I decided to make a video of what it looks like when you enter in an Atari 800, also known as the Atari 8-bit family, basic program that you found in a magazine. Why I'm doing this, I don't know, but I happened to be searching for old Atari 8-bit games by the company Soft Side because I was familiar with them. By the way, I just launched BASIC. And I found this video that I thought was really cool of an old program from Soft Side that I used to use. I used to play with this, not really play with it, just run it and watch. It's the Flight of the Bumblebee with a cool animation. And here it is for a moment. And I don't know, that led me to think I had this similar kind of program that didn't have any animation, but it was a song. And it was called the Curly Calypso. And I was like, I'm going to Google for that. Maybe there's a video for that. And I did not find any such video. What I did find was this PDF of a scan of a magazine called Family Computing. And they had a column about musical programs by this guy, Mr. Joey Latimer. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And this is the scan. I'm going to type in this program and excuse me. And then we'll see how the Curly Calypso sounds. Is it everything I dreamed of? So this was apparently a column again in Family Computing, and I guess I don't know if it was in every issue or not, but it dealt with, I guess, strictly musical related programs. This time they actually got some well-known musicians to compose the music, and they are these two members of the Steve Miller Band, Kenny Lee Lewis and Gary Malaber. And so it's actually a pretty cool one. I thought it was great at the time. I mean, obviously it's going to be a bit dated, but it was kind of cool hearing that the sound could come out of my computer. And if you read up here, it mentions that it sounded kind of like a combination of a calypso band along with Curly of the Three Stooges, hence the name Curly Calypso. So let's get right to it. So when you program, I guess I should switch back to the basic prompt. One moment. Yeah, you program on Atari Basic, you have to enter line numbers manually, which is really basic by today's standards. But I'm going to try to explain to you the code as I write it, as I understand it. I'm not an expert by any means at Atari Basic, but I do know Basic in general. And I did play with Atari Basic quite a bit back in the day, although my understanding was very limited. And anyway, what I'm doing here is typing in line number 10. It's pretty much conventional to type to enter lines in increments of 10. So that way, if you need to squeeze a line in between, you can just make it like halfway in between. So if I wanted to squeeze something in between lines 10 and 20, I could make it line 15. So is it going to say ready again? I guess not 20. Poke. By the way, the first line is just declaring some variables. Apparently they're strings. Strings are... I'll try to think of how to explain a string to someone who might not know. It's just a series of characters. For example, your name would be best fit into a data type known as a string, as opposed to any kind of numeric data type, such as an integer. You would not fit your name, for instance, my name, Mark W., in an integer. It would go in a string. And those numbers in parentheses you see on the first line, those are probably the length of the string. So for instance, I've declared, using the dim command, I've declared $, $, C, oops, I made a typo, number C4 is supposed to be $C, and $D. And they each have different lengths. That length is either in bytes or in number of characters. I'm not sure which off the top of my head. But since I made an error in line 10, I have to re-input it basically. I may be doing this a lot. It's kind of awkward to type. If I type too quickly, it doesn't register my... Oh, what just happened? Okay. So somehow I wiped out the entire line. I don't know how I did that. Yeah, if I type too quickly, it doesn't register my characters. I learned that on a recent stream in which I was playing the game Zork on Atari. And the screen basically looked exactly like this. It might have even been written in BASIC, I don't know though. But they give you this kind of prompt. So let's type list to see what we've written so far. Okay, so that's that. You can type list at any time. If you've done any programming before and you're not a dinosaur like me, you may be like, wait a minute, where's the editor? Well, you don't really have an editor. You're just kind of inputting one line at a time at a command prompt like thing. It is what it is. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. But yeah, it is pretty limited. You see some of these lines are strung together with colons. A colon just means, well, end of line, sort of. And you can string another line on the same line number. So you can put multiple related lines together. Or if you're desperate to squeeze in a line that you don't have the line number for instance, if you have lines 11, say 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and you want to squeeze in a line between 12 and 13, you would be stuck if you didn't have these colons. You would have to rewrite everything to shift all the line numbers on down, which is kind of absurd by today's standards. In any editor today, you would just squeeze it in. You know, like if you're in Windows Notepad or like Emacs or any kind of editor, you can just insert a line very easily. And in a modern language, like say, you know, Python or Java, it would not even require you to, or even C, it would not require you, or even Forms of Basic, it would not require you to enter line numbers manually like this. It would kind of compute them for you. So then if you say you run a Java program and you have an error, a runtime error, it would say error at line, 45. But you didn't write 45, it just figured that out for you. But back in these dinosaur days, these prehistoric days, you had to do it this way. Okay, so hopefully I didn't make any typos so far. Now, we're about, say, 20% through the bulk of the program, and then we have a large section of data, binary data, which is just a bunch of bytes, raw bytes, and they are very difficult to get right. Because I'll jump to the section in the magazine for a second so you can see. So this section is the beginning of the data at line 1000. And so I'm literally going to have to type data space 104, comma 162, comma 6, comma 160, etc., all these times. So this is the data that, there's a comment before each section. There's two sections. And this block here, 1000 through 1080, that's a machine language for vibrato effect. So it's kind of related to the tone of the music. And from 2000 to the rest of the program, the end of the program, is the actual notes themselves, duration, and phrasing data. So most of the program is just going to be the data lines, and the rest of it is going to be how to play the data lines, basically. All right, so where the heck were we? We were on 60. By the way, when I'm inputting the data lines, I might accelerate the video or just cut ahead, because it's going to be not too fun. This was probably already not too fun, but if you're curious, you can watch. If you want to just watch, check out the end input, the final result, you can do that as well. Just jump ahead. But I can explain a little bit what's happening here. If you look at line 60 that I just entered, is what's called a for loop. From 1 through 122, that means we're actually going to repeat this section of code on this line, everything in between the for and the next at the end, the next I at the end, 122 times. And we're going to read A, and there's some string manipulation. I don't know exactly what it's doing. Len is probably getting the length of the string that we call $. I can't really get too much more specific than that right now. So if I type too quickly, the keys don't register, which is really making this challenging. I'm probably not going to get through the whole thing without a bug. But who knows, maybe I will. So now we're looking at the next string, which is $B. Plus 1 equals... I used to do this for fun, if you can believe that. I would be so excited about what kind of program I would produce. Sometimes they were games, sometimes they were, it could be anything, any kind of program. And sometimes you would, unfortunately, transcribe incorrectly and create a non-functional program. So, oh man, this typing speed thing is killing me. Sometimes, though, the magazine itself would have an error in it. Which means, oh, what's this have? Okay, apparently if you hit Shift Delete, you wipe the line you're typing, so I have to make sure I don't do that. Back to 22. I mean to line 80, that is. $E. Later on in the lifetime of these kind of printed program listings, they decided, hey, what if we made a tool that gave kind of a checksum of the code that you're writing? So that way you would basically be given a tip about whether you input the line correctly. The checksum would be like, I believe, just like 2 characters in front of the line number in the program listing, and it would just be a sanity check to make sure you got it right. Where the heck am I here? $E.23 equals $E.3. Okay. So you have to leave this program running that would provide the checksums as you typed each line out. This listing that I have does not have such a thing. By the way, I wonder what year this was. I don't see offhand. It was 1985, July 1985, Family Computing. Where the heck am I? $E.43 equals $0, $44 equals $48. Okay. $E.45. This is harder than I thought it would be. I thought I would be able to handle it easily, but there's no way I'm going to get through this entirely bug-free, so if it's not functional, I'll probably just pause the video for a bit. Or maybe I'll leave it recording in case something interesting happens and just kind of edit it down later. But we'll see. Oof. Okay, I gotta figure out a better way to do this. I am looking back and forth between my modern day laptop and my Atari 8-bit emulator here. Okay, so 322 $E.65. I'm just gonna announce things more so I don't lose track. $322, are we good? $65 equals $3, 22. 110 is the next line. $. Maybe I should use an OCR tool for this. Scan it for me. Those things are rarely perfect, though. Okay, $1.85 equals CHR $0, $1.86 equals 104. Okay. Anytime you see something like CHR $ and then a number, I think that's saying a certain character, a single character that you look up by the character code that Atari uses. I'm almost tempted to say ASCII, but that's probably not what we're looking at here. Most people are probably familiar with the ASCII codes. The character set is ASCII. This is not ASCII. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it is. A, B, next I, for I equals 1 to 12. Again, it's a loop of 12. Read A, B, D dollar, len, D dollar plus 1 equals B dollar A comma B. Next I, 140, print, not pint, come on, yeah, I'm going too fast again. Print EATHR dollar 125 colon position. If I recall correctly, that sets a draw on the screen at position 11, 10. One of them is the x coordinate and one of them is the y coordinate. The Curly Calypso dash. I'll transcribe it exactly. Get 150 position 13, 11. Print by Kenny Lewis. Hope you're doing well, Kenny Lewis, if you're still with us. I know it's a terrible thing to say. Print and Gary. Oh, these are are these the musicians from the band I was talking about? Let me just check quick. Yes. So from the Steve Miller band, okay. P equals -1, P2 equals -1, P3 equals, these are all related code, so they're kind of sticking them in one line, I guess. In many modern programming languages, by the way, you have indentation you can do. Sometimes it's mandatory, depending on the language. And I was thinking about how the for loops that we had on previous lines, if you were going to span them across multiple lines, you would not have indentation. And you could probably do it. I don't think Atari would complain if you wrote a couple spaces or so after the line number. So that could make it more readable if you have like a big if statement or for loop that spans multiple lines. But generally this programmer, whoever wrote this one, decided to stick it all on one line using colons. So it's really kind of multiple lines in under one line number. If T1 equals 0, then P1 equals P1 plus 2 colon poke 203. And these poke commands are on direct memory access, is my understanding. It says put this particular byte or bunch of bytes into this location in memory. And you have to know what you're doing with this, or you totally screw everything up. You could crash the machine, possibly. I don't know. You probably could. I don't know for sure, though. Whew. I'm going to take a sip. Hold on. Okay. That's 170. 180 if T2 equals 0. This is a similar line as the last one, but we're on T2 and P2 rather than T1 and P1. I can't type 2. There we go. Poke 204 ASC. Maybe it says ASCII. What is ASC? I don't know. I don't know what that is. Usually when I see ASC in programming, I mean, the two things it makes me think of are ascending, which means in ascending order. Like in the SQL language, if you want to order your data going from low to high, you would type ASC for ascending. I don't think this has anything to do with that, but it makes me think of that. And the other thing it makes me think of is ASCII. P2 plus 1 times 5. Let me just do a little health check on my recording. Okay, it looks good. Sometimes these programs lock up or crash, and I don't want to be wasting a lot of time if it's crashing on me. Anyway, 190 if T3 equals 0, and then P3 equals P3 plus 2. Again, we have the same pattern here as the previous couple of lines. Here we're doing the ASCII or ascending, whatever it is. $E P3 T3 equals ASC $E. Oh no, I erased it again. Let's do a list. Okay, just wanted to make sure we didn't have 190. If T3 equals 0, then P3 equals P3 plus 2. Poke 205 ASC $E P3 T3 equals ASC $E P3 plus 1 da 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 da. Beautiful. 200. T1 equals T1 minus 1. T2 equals T2 minus 1. In more modern languages, they have a shortcut for when you're typing this kind of thing. If you want to decrement once, you would probably do this like in C or Java or something. T3 minus minus. Okay, that's that line. We're getting close to the end, at least before the massive data section, which is probably going to drive me mad. I might need therapy after that. If P1 equals 287 and T1 equals 0, then 160. That means if this condition is true, we're going to go back to line 160. Naming specific lines to go to is considered really bad practice these days. In certain situations, they can be okay, but now remember I said about shifting lines down if I run out of space. Well, now that I have go-tos going to lines, if I ever did shift lines around, I'd have to make sure I update the go-tos as well. Otherwise, the program is going to be totally screwed up. Machine language for vibrato. This is just a comment, by the way, or a mark that says, here's what's going on in this code. In general, in programming, it's a good idea to do that anytime there's unclear code. All right, here we go. I am going to hate this. 104, 162, 6, 160, 11, 169, 6, 32, 92. I need to rearrange my setup here a little bit so I don't have to. Basically, I'm turning my head back and forth 90 degrees and it's getting ridiculous at this point. So let's see. Hopefully, I'm still connected to everything here. All right, so it looks good. Okay, now I'm going only about 45 degrees. It's still not perfect, but whatever, real deal. 96, 216, 198. When my brother and I would program these, we would often read each other the data. It's so much easier than glancing back and forth. If somebody's just telling you the numbers as they come. So it's basically just this for a while. I'm probably going to accelerate when I edit the video, but for now I'm just going to keep talking. If something interesting comes into my mind, I'll say it. Otherwise, I'll definitely just, skip over this. 133. If you notice, the maximum number we're ever seeing is 255, perhaps 256, but I think it's 255. That seems to indicate we are working with bytes here, one at a time. 1 byte is 8-bit of data, and the maximum value is, actually would be 255 for 1 byte. 255 is the max. That's if all the bits are 1s. And I'm not going to explain full binary math, but in binary you do have 1s and 0s. And fortunately, Atari Basic doesn't make us enter the bytes in binary. Otherwise, we'd be writing like this. So decimal is kind of easier. It's more condensed. You could argue that hexadecimal would be even tighter. Hexadecimal being 16 different characters per digit, sort of. So if you could just write a byte more easily. Although, maybe it would be less easy. It would be fewer characters, but it might be harder to type in a huge string like this because you would be going back and forth between letters and numbers, which could be annoying or difficult, or perhaps even causing more errors. If I were good at the keypad, I know some people in general, when they're typing a lot of numbers, they just use their keypad, the number pad. That's usually on the right of keyboards, and they just kind of bang out these numbers, and they're really good. I never got good at that. I'm definitely a decent typist, but I never got good at using the num key, the numpad and keypad. But I do get frustrated by this if I type. I said it a million times, but if I type too fast, it doesn't register my keys. So I would be surprised if I do not have any errors. I'll be really surprised. First of all, I make typos once in a while because I'm human. Secondly, this is difficult input to transcribe. Thirdly, if I type too fast, it doesn't register my input. So there's just so many things that can go wrong. If this is perfect on the first try, I would be shocked. So it's possible some of these numbers that I'm inputting, like right now I'm inputting the binary data for the vibrato effect. It's possible if I get like 2 or 3 digits off by a little bit, it might not negatively affect the final product, or at least not in a strongly noticeable way. Or it could totally make it sound like garbage, I'm not sure. But if you think if I'm describing a kind of a musical tone here, it might not matter if there are a couple tiny mistakes. Once I get to the actual notes, it's possible that might be more noticeable, like if there's a pitch wildly out of tune, that would be noticeable for sure. 210 is the last one on line 1060 and 1070 now. 201, 160, 208. And you may wonder why I'm torturing myself doing this. I don't know, I'm always curious about retro computing stuff and games and all that. And when I Googled for this particular program and I did not see any evidence of it on YouTube or pretty much anywhere except for this scan of the magazine, I felt like, I gotta make an attempt to sort of revive that. Maybe preserve it. Maybe I should be some sort of curator of digital museum. A museum. I'll make a digital museum and I'll be the curator. That's what I'm trying to say. Or I don't know. I'm speaking nonsense, don't I? I'm an archivist kind of. I have an archivist kind of mind, maybe. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. Alright, so we actually finished the tone part of the data, and now we're going to do line 1999, rem, that's a remark again, notes, duration, and phrasing data. Oh god, this part is longer than the last one by... Okay, if I try to look at all the lines and grasp the scale of it, it'll just make me freak out. So 62, 57, 1, 53, 350, 147, 3, 2010, data, 45, 2, 47, 2, 50, 153. Maybe these dudes from the Steve Miller Band, if they see that, I kind of feel bad. I don't know if they're still around or not, but maybe this will get their attention and they'll comment. That'll be funny, or fun, I guess I should say. Anyway, or the guy who wrote this column, Joey Latimer. Let's make sure I got this line right. 61080 2 37 142. Starting to get fatigued, sorry. Okay, I'm actually going to take a little break, so I'm going to pause it right here and go for a short walk and have a drink of water. Okay, I'm back and slightly refreshed, not a lot. I only took like a 5-minute break, but I did Google those musicians we were talking about and the author of this column, and they are still alive and kicking. I apologize for doubting your existence, if you happen to watch this ever. 250. Whew. Still hard in my eyes. You know what? I'm going to zoom in on the code, actually. That would be better. You cannot see me zooming in right now, but I am doing that so I can read the magazine better, basically. Alright, that's good. My eyes are aging, unfortunately. That's just how it is. 250. I feel like they've been worse. I'm in the middle of, I don't know when you're watching this, people, but it is the big 2020 COVID pandemic, and I have been working from home for the past 6 months. I am a programmer by trade, but or by profession, I guess you would say. But when you're staring at a screen and you're not like looking off in the distance as often because you're not commuting and you're not taking walks around the office, and I have a large office, large-ish, and I don't know. Basically, I think I focus too much on the screen in front of me. Let me just do an audio check. I want to make sure I got all my things set up still. Okay, gotta check levels and things. Is something on mute? Because after taking my break, I did not check on that. Anyway, 72.1, 64.1, 57. I recall entering in programs with my brother that were a little larger than this. It was just like madness. It was absurd that we had the patience to do that. But we thought, we're going to get a cool game out of this. And we were big game lovers. And the prospect of getting a cool game for free with just a little bit of, legwork involved, it was pretty awesome. I am glad I do not have to do anything like this on my job when I program. It's transcribing from a magazine into an editor. That's just absurd. It's mind-boggling from today's point of view, actually. Because it's like there's so many ways to transfer data. It could be by diskette, if we're getting old-fashioned, or it could be, internet. And on the internet, you can do it by, 8,000 different ways, basically. It could be, excuse me, it could be an email, it could be a file you send over FTP or HTTP or anything. Even before the internet, though, we had dial-up modems. You could download a program from a BBS. Let's see. And when I say before the internet, I mean before it really exploded in the 90s and got commercial and all that. 2080 data 50, 147, 2, 42, 2, 47, 2, 51. Whew. I'm going to put the current line at the top in my PDF viewer just so I don't have to scan up and down for it quite as much. Gradually refining, gradually improving my efficiency. That's the name of the game. No matter what kind of work you do, you want to do that kind of thing. Evaluate how you can make it better, make it easier for yourself. There's kind of an old adage that programmers are lazy, and that's why we have so many tools that automate things for us, automate processes, automate pretty much anything. If you find yourself writing or repeating any kind of task on a computer, you can probably automate it. Obviously, it depends on what you're talking about. If there's something with qualitative reasoning involved, that might be a lot more difficult. But at its basic level, if you're repeating the same command, maybe you have to go to work and as part of your job, you need to check some data in a database and you have to put it in an Excel file and mail it to your boss. And you find yourself just like, oh, I hate repeating this task. I run the query, I paste the query into my SQL client, and then I, paste the results into Excel, and then email. You could automate all that, and that is something you should do. And then we have a this line is so much smaller. It indicates to me that it is the end of a chunk of data for a specific purpose. And now we're moving to, actually the line number indicates that as well. We're moving to a whole different section. Maybe it's a different, I don't know. I don't think it has verse chorus per se, but if it was like a typical pop song structure, maybe the first part was the verse and now I'm working on the chorus. But I don't know. It's just a different chunk. Could be anything for all I know. $173, $185, $136, to $144. I am violating my own principle of leaving the line number at the top. The current line is what I mean. Okay, so 153. Now we're on to 3020 data 3 162 1 173 1 0 1 173 1 and 85 3030 data 1 173 185 173. A lot of 173 coming up. That might be like the duration of a note, perhaps, or the pitch of a note, or just part of that. It might not be in and of itself representing that. It might be the 1 and the 173 combined, for example. I really don't know. I don't know the specifics of how this works, what's going on under the hood. I'm just inputting a bunch of data. And by the way, if you were programming this data, how do you know what these magic numbers are? Well, you would... It's a lot you have to know. You'd have to know, first of all, the music would have to be well-defined in a way that makes sense to a musician. The musician would probably write it. Probably the guys from the Steve Miller Band didn't know how to program this stuff, but they probably wrote down in some sort of musical notation, maybe just standard musical notation, the pitches and the notes, etc. The pitches and the duration, etc. So then somebody had to be able to translate that to the binary, the bits and bytes that the machine understands. And then that got translated to these lines that you see here. Now, it's possible they actually were able to automate this process of generating these lines of code. It's totally possible. That would make life much easier, and it would make it less error prone for the magazine. That's another great thing about automation is you reduce errors. Of course, you can have bugs in your automation, but you fix it once and you fix it forever. So if you had a robot writing this line right here, or a program outputting it, it's not going to accidentally slip and hit 8 instead of 7 here. And anyone who's a programmer is probably thinking I'm saying such basic, obvious stuff, but I really don't know who's my audience here. I guess nobody totally uninterested in programming would be viewing this, and so it's hard to imagine a non-programmer watching me do this, but I don't know. I might just leave all this data in because I keep finding things to say. I don't know how I can just talk about nonsense all the time. But we'll see. I'm not huge on editing my videos too much. I usually figure anyone's free to just skip ahead if something is boring. Once in a while, I will edit something though. Depends on what I'm doing, of course. If I have a gaming video and I have to actually pause the game and leave for a minute, obviously I probably want to skip that. I do a lot of streaming too, so I guess I could take archived streams and edit those, but I actually never do that. It is a lot of work to do this YouTube stuff. I do it for fun. I kind of just do it. If someone doesn't like my low fidelity production, then oh well. I get a dislike, I guess. It doesn't really matter. If you are trying to maximize your viewership, then sure. Obviously, I would like to have a lot of viewers, but I'm not really trying to make money from this, and I don't care about bragging rights in terms, with respect to I have 1,000 subscribers and 100,000 views. I'm so great. Doesn't really matter. But I kind of just like the interaction of that. People leaving comments. By the way, if you want to leave comments, I'm all ears. Although I won't be hearing them, I'll be reading them with my eyes. So maybe that's not the right expression. 182, 1173. Sometimes the data is so similar, I have to make sure I'm not. Okay, I was gonna say I have to make sure I'm not retyping the same code twice, and I was doing exactly that, unfortunately. So 3110 should be 3162 153 195. Yeah, sometimes there's similar patterns, and then your eyes kind of go to the wrong line. So basically, this should be 1, not 2. And then we have 96, 1, and 153. We're getting to the home stretch, basically. There's about 10-ish lines left. Data 2, 1, 6, 2, 1. 73, 3, 182. And if there are errors in this code, hopefully it'll be obvious. If it's something like a syntax error, I think I would have been told of it already. But there is such a thing as runtime errors, in which you will get the error message at the time when you run. And hopefully it's obvious where errors are. I'm not going to spend significant effort debugging this. So hopefully it works off the bat, or any errors that we find are obvious to fix. And again, as I said earlier, if there's tiny errors in the music data, which is what I'm typing right now, by the way, we're at a new section apparently, then hopefully just the occasional error will not make a significant impact on the end result. Maybe one note's pitch is a little bit off, for example, but who knows? We'll see. 204. I wonder if I could actually program a robot to do this for me. Basically, it comes back to OCR. You would not need a physical robot to pound on a keyboard. So OCR is just a technology. For anybody who doesn't know, you take a document, it could be on paper, for example, you scan it in, and the OCR software will read it in for you, so you have digital data. And I have actually used this kind of technology on a job years and years ago. It's not 100% perfect ever, and you have to kind of train it. Quick break for a sip of water. Yeah, so at the company I was working for back in 2003 to 2006, we basically worked with mortgage documents. I'm on the wrong line. And we had to read a bunch of orders that were faxed to us, a bunch of documents that were faxed to us. You don't need to know the specifics, but we had like desks and desks of employees who were manually entering in these order numbers, and they were looking up the item in our database with that and making manual changes and stuff. But automating that process was huge. However, there was a chance of error. I think we managed to put some kind of error in like an error box that people would have to manually go through, like a directory. But I guess the idea was if there was an ID number that didn't exist in our database, then we get an error like not found or whatever from the database, and then you can put that in an error folder that somebody can manually go through later. But the problem is if it's a false positive kind of thing, like say the ID number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but that's the number on the paper, but the OCR software reads it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Well, now the problem is if 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 actually exists in our database, that's the number that will get modified by the automated process. So everything has its problems. It's potential pitfalls. But as far as I'm aware, it's been a long time. We saved a ton of man hours with that project. Perhaps even better would have been if they could have avoided faxing data. I thought we're on the last line here, believe it or not. Oh my god, I'm really excited. You ready, guys? That's it. Are you ready for the Curly Calypso? Oops, here's the whole program in all its glory. All we have to do is type run and then watch the errors pour in. Here we go, ready? Here is the Curly, I'm going to turn up the sound a little bit, the Curly Calypso. Tuning up, please wait. I remember this sounding better. It could be the emulator I'm using is not perfect. It could be I made an error. Sounds pretty bad actually. Probably just my nostalgia. It's actually pretty good. I'm getting used to it. I don't know what I'm expecting. Okay, I'm going to shut up now and let it play for. I think this loops forever, so I'll let it play for a couple minutes and then I'll say goodbye. to the magazine that I was looking at. I'm going to lower this so you can hear me. There. Hopefully you can hear me a little better now. In the magazine, there was actually I have to zoom out here. They were saying that the reason it's called Curly Calypso sounded like a combination Calypso band and along with Curly of the Three Stooges. I assume that kind of the bass part. It's like, it sounds like whoop 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 kind of thing. What else do we have here? Let's read the whole notes here. The last time I saw this is written by Joey Latimer, who also is still alive, by the way. The last time I saw Kenny Lee Lewis and Gary Malaber was at a 24-track recording studio. I was called in to engineer the overdubs of a record they were producing. The first thing I knew, Kenny and Gary had me hooking up almost every computerized effects unit in place. It became clear to me then that these veteran musicians were also members of the computer generation. K-Power editor Ann Kruger came to me recently and asked if I knew any pop songwriters who might write a song for K-Power. K-Power is... I don't know, I was going to say maybe its name is Column, but I think it's called Microtone. Maybe it's K-Power Microtone? I don't know. Anyway, but the magazine is Family Computer thing. That's what the file name says. Anyway, let's keep going. If I knew any pop songwriters, blah blah blah, I thought of these guys. They swiftly went into action and composed our Microtones feature this month, called the Curly Calypso. Says co-writer Kenny, we just did it and it came out sounding like a combination Calypso band along with Curly of the Three Stooges. Hacker notes. The Curly Calypso was composed by Kenny and Gary using a synthesizer sequencer. Technical editor John Janeshig translated the song into Atari note tables by looking at a lead sheet provided by Kenny and Gary. A lead sheet shows a musical staff with notes on it, and by listening to a tape of the original sequenced version. Arrays or strings were added to store the notes and note drivers to play them. The result is a very interesting song in 6/4 time. Would Curly like it? Nuck, nuck, nuck. Why sweetly? And there you have it. Is there anything else worth reading here? Micro notes. Micro. Yeah, so it's kind of this, some extra info. I won't read it all though. If you'd like to read this, you could pause it. And again, this is from July 1985, Family Computing. Actually, I confirmed it's Family Computing down here. Alright. So that's about it. Let's switch back to the beautiful screen. And I will see you on my next video. I know my channel is all over the place, but hopefully you like what I'm doing here. I will always take likes and subscribes. I won't beg for them. But if you want to give me one, I'll take it. And I will just let the Curly Calypso play on for another minute before fading out. See you next time, folks. Take care.